I think already we've managed to produce a lot more cricket in South Africa than we probably thought sort of November last year. It has been challenging. I think COVID and the pandemic has required us to think and act very differently. But going forward, I think it's been documented already that Australia won't be here in March. So the decision that we took as Cricket South Africa was looking at all round and what was available from an international perspective on the men's side. We felt that it was important to invest in our own domestic competitions and to make our national players available for all of that. We've worked really hard on getting the domestic one-day cup played on the men's side. We've worked hard on the CSA T20, which is about to take place. All national players will be involved in that as well. The team that's returning from Pakistan will go directly into the bubble in Durban. And then in March, in the gap that was meant to be, we were meant to be hosting the Australian series, we will now have the remainder of our 4-day competition. And we're working closely with SuperSport on making sure that will be televised as well, or a number of games will be televised, and all national players will be available for that, building up to the Pakistan tour, and then obviously IPL with our winter program to follow. We're hoping to make an announcement this afternoon on one of the winter tours, and the rest will follow.
Graeme, it's John Purick here from The Age in Melbourne. Thanks for your time today. How would you say relations are at the moment between CA and CSA? And this letter that's been written to the ICC, do you hope that both nations appear before, say, the Dispute Resolutions Committee to try and get a proper sort of answer, I guess, for what's happened?
Well, good evening to you. I think the relationship is definitely strained at this stage. I think there's an effort, certainly from our side, to engage and to set up a meeting, more at board level now. I think that more than anything, the ICC needs to have strong leadership going forward now. I believe that COVID is even amplifying the haves and the have-nots, and the relationships across the board, and how cricket's future landscape is going to be handled. The FTP is going to be a hugely challenging thing, with potentially 8 ICC tournaments in 8 years, an extended IPL, and a lot of the sort of calendar dominated by certainly India, England, and Australia. It makes it extremely challenging for the rest of the member nations. And when things happen like they've just happened, it amplifies that stress on nations like us and the other members that are looking for good content. So I think that certainly engagement needs to happen to improve things between South Africa and Australia.
Just one quick one. When can this series be rescheduled for, and could it still be played in Australia, or that's too hard?
No, the March window is done now, and ops teams are trying to find an opportunity to fit it in this calendar cycle. I think for us, it's important that it happens in the calendar cycle. To be honest with you, we've had some initial engagements with the ops side of Cricket Australia. It hasn't been positive on trying to find a window, but we're working hard on it.
The Pakistan series is going to be clashing with the IPL, or certainly the start of the IPL. Will the contracted players be playing for South Africa? In other words, will you stop them basically from going to the IPL?
Colin, I think we haven't made a definitive decision on that yet. Obviously, we've just announced those fixtures. We're still waiting. We're still waiting for definitive dates on the IPL. So internal engagement needs to happen with management and selectors, and I guess get into a discussion over how we're going to move forward regarding IPL. So yeah, that's going to happen probably over the next coming days. I need to wait for the management team to get back from Pakistan before we sit down and discuss that. We also need the selectors to work out what the squads are going to be, and then we'll go from there.
In view of the fact that the South African public hasn't had a lot of international cricket this season, would it not be imperative that all the top players are available for that Pakistan series?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, Colin, but that is obviously my opinion. I mean, South African cricket, we need to invest in it, and it needs to come first. But as you know, it's a little bit more complex than that. And we also have made a commitment to release our players over the years to IPL. It has always been a window that we've committed to as CSA. It's been in the calendar. So it is something that we'll need to robustly debate and make a decision on in the coming days.
This is Kaushik from Women's Cricket Zone. My question is that there has been reports that the South Africa women's team will be visiting India this March. So could you please update on that? I mean, is that happening, and what has been the talks with the BCCI?
The talks have been progressing, so it's still my hope that will be the case. We obviously very keen on providing as much content to our ladies as possible. They lost out towards the end of last year because of the pandemic and the government regulations in South Africa. So we're working hard on building a busier FTP for them going forward. So we're in the process of dealing with the BCCI on that.
Hi, Graeme. What is your understanding of the FTP and how it will be played out from here? So, I mean, if you looked at the list we've got at the moment, we have a tour to visiting, India will be visiting, and then South Africa due to go to New Zealand and so on. Are you understanding that will take place, or does everything need to be like redrafted, and who's doing that work?
For those, there is obviously an FTP schedule. I mean, some of these windows were worked out ages ago. Mike Gadger heads up sort of the calendar cycle for us. We work closely together on that and securing tours, but there's also an opportunity for members to maneuver, to add tours, to make up for lost tours, to add them into the diary. So we obviously lost one or two. This Pakistan tour was meant to be in October last year. We've managed to reschedule now for April. We were meant to be in the West Indies. We're working on rescheduling that as part of our winter program. There's a Sri Lankan tour. Potentially, we are scheduled to go to India before the World Cup as well. So there's, and as you say, India to come to us at the end of the year. So final sign off on all those things is in the process. But, those little details take a bit more time, especially with now every nation trying to fill the gaps that were caused by COVID. So it's a bit of a bun fight out there, to be honest with you.
Sorry, and is it also more complicated given CSA's administrative challenges? Is there somebody who's heading up the discussions, or do you find it's a little bit silent?
No, I mean, I don't think it's been a board issue. It's an operational issue. Obviously, when things get escalated, and COVID has created, different talking points and different boxes to tick. But the ops team is working really hard on sorting it out. Myself and Mike Gadger in particular have been trying to sort out our winter program. I expect it to be very busy for certainly our men's national team. There's a lot of cricket to come. Also trying to manage, these bubble lives that the players are spending time in, the mental health, the welfare of players as well, considering all of that. But we do need to get our players playing. Certainly, we've got a lot of growth to happen in our men's game, where players need to step up. We've got to improve, and we've got to get our team playing. So, that's my ultimate goal.
Morning, Graeme. Just on that, the players playing in this 4-day competition is vital. Is it? We've seen the test side battle a little bit. Is it about application? Do they need to play more 4-day cricket? How important is it that the senior players get out there in this competition? And also, it leads to, with all the COVID chaos, what are the players' contractual situation? Are you looking, can you guarantee contracts going forward? What sort of timeframes? Is there money to contract players? And I mean, does this playing in a domestic competition all form part of a sort of new look strategy of players contracting?
My position on this is that it's open season. I don't think that, we've obviously got some players that have put in some good performances, but around the contracts and around the national teams, I think there's a lot of places up for grabs. And I think there should be a lot of competition in the CSA T20. There should be in the 4-day game. What I want to see is people performing. By no means is it I think already we've played huge squads this year. We've carried huge squads because of COVID. A lot of people have tasted being in and around the national team. Touring, I mean, I think in Pakistan we had over 40 players between the test matches and the T20. So, you know, for me, my goal for the next coming months is to see all our players step up and to see who performs. You know, we're going into contracting season now with the 17 contracted players. There's the restructure of the game. So, you know, it's an important time for the selectors and the management to get their strategies right and to identify who the right people to move forward with are.
Morning, Graham. This is Tony from ENCA. We've heard from a player perspective on the bubble, but in terms of the operations of CSA, just what has that been like? Is there a strain financially? And I'll ask because the PSL quoted a figure of 100 million in terms of the PSL bubble that they did to complete the last season. So just for CSA financially, what has that been like? And obviously there's an international aspect for cricket to try and keep players as safe as possible. But yeah, what's that been like?
Yeah, it's been an intense process. I mean, from identifying the right hotels, the right setups. You know, I think our medical team have certainly been extended. I mean, I've spent hours with them on calls. I feel like I've actually become a doctor over the last sort of 6 months with the amount of knowledge I've gained on COVID and dealing with it. So yeah, it is definitely increasing the expense of tours, and you know, it's also a process with member nations to figure out who pays for what. Certainly, so far our option is always to pay for. We have paid for everything on the ground. We've picked up all the extra costs. We've set up the tours. I think the Sri Lankan one was a huge success. The women's bubble in Pakistan was a huge success, and our Momentum Cup one in Poch as well. So. Now we're setting up a bubble with 6 franchise teams in Durban for the CSA T20. Obviously, these come with different issues. Teams are used to playing at home, gaining their own sponsorship, in their stadiums, and so there's a lot of complications not outside just the medical that you need to sort out. So. I've been very proud of how the CSA team has handled it and taken on, all the different challenges that have been thrown their way. But absolutely, I mean, I don't have a figure for you, but I can tell you that it's a lot more than what we would have paid in the past.
And just how sustainable is it in terms of that?
Look, I think if anyone had a choice, it would be get back to normal. Let's get crowds in. Let's get cricket played with the fans. Let's go back to the way it was. But we don't know when that's going to be a reality. I think the most important thing is to get cricket played. Get our players in the park, get them performing, traveling the world, competing against the best. I think our goal for both teams, men and women, is to be at the top ranking, and our women are probably in a better position than our men, but we've got to push even them further. So our goal has got to be to get cricket played for both our players and for CSA and our fans.
It sounds a bit like you making it a contractual obligation for the Proteas to play in the next 2 domestic competitions. When do you foresee the 4-day competition ending? And there does seem to have been a little bit of bubble fatigue from the Proteas in Pakistan, guys just seeming to be a bit unhappy about, all the time they've spent in bubbles. Do you foresee any sort of reluctance now to go back into another bubble in Durban?
I would say that everyone's, from a player perspective, has been really positive about the fact that they want to play, they want to push for places. Yes, I believe that it's a challenging space for players. I mean, some players have only played 7 international games in the entire season, so the workload from a playing perspective hasn't been there. It's more just managing, I guess, the COVID stresses, the fact that life is a bit different in a bubble. I think Pakistan probably as a nation, touring there with the security probably adds a little bit sort of extra stress on that. But I mean, I must say that they have been, the PCB and the way that they handle it, and our players have been extremely happy with how they were looked after in Pakistan, and the fact that cricket could be played. It was great to see. I mean, I was there in 2007, so it was great to see our guys go back and play there. But no, in all, I mean, we're obviously trying our best to manage the mental health. We've got consistent questionnaires. We've got psychologists involved. We're working closely with SACA. some players have got it, slightly tougher than others. The guys who go to IPL spend 2 months in the bubble there, and they're going to spend 2 months in the bubble, April, May, potentially. That creates its own complications with us, the bubble fatigue. How do you manage the national side when they've only played 7 or 8 games, but they're going to IPL for 4 months in the season? So there's a few more complications around these things, Ken. But ultimately, I think the players have been good and committed to play. I can't see how we would get 4-day cricket played in a bubble. I think we would have to look at different protocols for that. But we're certainly going to do the CSA T20 in the bubble, and then 4-day comp will more than likely be done with other medical protocols.
When do you foresee the domestic season ending?
Ken, I'm hoping to have that released this afternoon, the fixtures. We're busy with Supersport as well on what will be televised. They've been great in supporting, the attendance, televising the CSA T20, all the games. And then obviously the 4-day comp as well, a number of games. And the ones that aren't, we're looking at hopefully getting a streaming option if we can get that sorted. But yeah, we're trying to get as much done and to put as much emphasis on improving our domestic product and people playing for places, because I think that's where we are as a cricketing nation now. We want to see performances, and we want to see, players put their hand up.
Just to go back to what's happened with the Australian tour, is the ICC of your dreams an organisation that actually tells Australia you will go and play there? Or is it better that we have this, bunch of 3 bullies messing everybody else about?
Look, Telford, I mean, I'm going to try and navigate your question, but the game needs leadership right now. It needs to understand the complexities. I mean, I don't think world cricket wants 3 nations competing against each other in 10 years' time. I mean, how does that benefit the game? It doesn't. I mean, I think that will then amplify the leagues. I think leagues will then just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and probably the rest of the member nations will have little to no content. And I think that the leadership at the ICC, if they don't address these things now, and I think it's being fast-tracked because of COVID, these issues are becoming more and more relevant and amplified. And I think the ICC certainly found themselves a little bit off guard with some of these issues now.
I don't know if this is your department, but how far along is the domestic restructure, and when will we know whether it's happening and what needs to happen in order to make it happen?
I hope I'm not going to talk out of turn, but for those, I have played a role in that. There's obviously other team members running with some of the details of how that looks, but the bidding process for those for those teams is underway currently. There's a rollout over the next few months from the bidding process to contracting to the setup. So it is currently underway.
And next season we'll have a new structure. We can say that. Yeah.
Well, if we meet all our operational targets, then yes, I can't see why that wouldn't be the case.
I just wanted to pick up on Firdousa's question. The restructure is obviously, there's a lot that needs to go into it, and particularly like the grading of who goes into the A section and who falls into the B section. And I know you don't want to speak out of turn in terms of, some things that haven't been confirmed yet, but how is there a concerted plan to have a proper grading system so that I would imagine some of the provinces will be feeling a little bit hard done by if they don't make the top section and they end up playing in the B section? Is there a grading system that the Pathways Department is working on to try and make sure that there is some sort of fairness in terms of the grading system of who makes the A section and the B section? Thank you.
Thanks, Fasana. Yeah, I mean, obviously, CSA has defined the criteria up front, and that's why there's the bidding process to, all franchises will have to meet that criteria. I think, CSA had done it successfully before in the MSL. I'm sure at the end of this process, there will be disappointment for certain, unions. I think everyone wants to be in the top 8 to start with. But I know the criteria and the team have worked extremely hard on, being as thorough in terms of, what is required from a top flight franchise. And the bidding process is underway. So, I think that process is a stressful one for CSA and one that we want to get right and that we take very seriously.
Hi, Graeme. Also on the restructure, just a few technical things. How many contracted players will all the teams be allowed, and will it be the same for both divisions? And with regards to promotion relegation, how are you going to navigate that? Because I mean, obviously it's not like rugby where you have 15 men, one format. You have 3 formats. Will there be like a promotion relegation match in each format, or will there be like a holistic judging of performances?
I'm not going to get into that today, because as with your questions, it is a complicated thing. It has been defined. We have worked hard on it. So I think the best thing to do, just to get all the detail right, is to just maybe for CSA in time to put out the release of how all these things are going to work. We've worked closely with SACA as well on sort of the contracting, the structure, the monies, from everything right through the pipeline of how the detail is going to look. So I think just to give a good document to the media, I think CSA needs to just define that in maybe a release for you, rather than me giving you bits and pieces here today.
Hi, morning, Graeme. I guess related to the contracted players, but there are certain players out there that are still kind of available for South Africa. I'm thinking about an Imran Tahir, a Dale Steyn, a Chris Morris. Where do they fall as far as selection is concerned with the T20 World Cup? I mean, are they available for Victor to pick?
As far as I know, I mean, they're available to be selected, but I think we would want to see them play more. I think it would be based on performances in leagues or in our own domestic competition. I know Chris is now, I think, turning out for the Titans. So it would be all performance based. I mean, obviously, I think our goal is to put out the best T20 World Cup squad that we can, but we can only judge that on the performances that the people are putting in, not on, I guess, past performances. So the guys need to get playing, and they need to be playing well to even be considered.
I have 2 questions. Number one is that with the successful, South Africa men's series to Pakistan, is there any plans that South Africa women will also tour Pakistan sometime later in the year? And is CSA planning to revive women's test cricket? Because the last time South Africa played a women's test was back in 2014.
No, as I said, we're looking to increase as much cricket as we can, and not only internationally, but in the coming season, domestically as well. We at CSA have recognised that we only got 14 odd contracted players, and we need to increase the talent pool, the opportunities for women to play at a level and challenge for national honours. That content in our own domestic hasn't probably been enough, and even though we're growing at a pace, we are aware that we want to invest in that a little bit more as well. So that is something that we've invested and are going to be spending money on in the coming season. Internationally, there's a number of, almost like the men's, there's a number of things in the pipeline that we're hoping to sign off very shortly. I wish these things could move quicker than what they do, but I'm hoping that our winter program and into our own summer season will be really busy for both our teams. And on the test side, yes, I mean, obviously it would be fantastic if we can make that work.